In this video, we're going to take a look at a red ink by Montblanc, their William Shakespeare. As always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also, down in the description is a link to a red ink playlist if you'd like to see more of them. I'm an ink guy, and I want to get into the first writing sample on 90 GSM Clairfontaine. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 13 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 25 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we're really not getting it. In the smear test, you could recover it if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a Viscosity Medici with a broad nib was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. Now let's take a look at the second writing sample done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. There is some slight bleeding that's occurred in just a couple of spots. Now this is the scrubby, and that's a spot in writing. That was very surprising right here. Now there's a minor bit of ghosting, but I don't see it as too big a deal. Just shocked by that bleed spot. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 19 seconds to dry. The medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 28 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both shows no color variation. We didn't expect it. We didn't get it. But the smear test, you stand a good chance with the extra fine, not so much with the medium, of recovering it if you smear while you're writing. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down, and then it's put in the water for 10 to 15 seconds. And there is this very surprising gray line at the bottom that really did bond with this paper quickly and didn't budge much when it was put in. The red flew away from the water all the way up this filter paper. Now the one on the right was let dry for 10 minutes before it's dunked into water. And the red is pushing its way away slower, but that resistant bit at the bottom is the most shocking part of this ink. I do think it might hold a little bit of resistance here. The next writing sample is done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. This red we're seeing is not any kind of bleed that's come through. That was when I had accidentally put it down on top of the swatch before it was fully dried. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 8 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 10 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation because there's none. And the smear test, you could recover it if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I would not use this in a note-taking situation because the red aspect of this ink blew up, absolutely turning this into mud that you can't read through. Water lifted mostly the red, but not so much that grayish permanent aspect we saw in the chromatography. There's good news with this though, because Montblanc is generally well behaved, and it was. It only took water to get this out of my pen. Pen Flush did everything that water did, and a lot more. Look at how it's really breaking down what looked like that permanent aspect, that gray. It's really starting to go away. And the 1/3 bleach solution, you're not going to need it because again, it's just obliterating it here, but it only took water to get it out of that Medici, which would have been a pain otherwise to get out of the pen. The next writing sample is done on moleskin paper. We do get bleeding. Some of this bleeding did touch the page underneath. Now, only from the medium at the top. We do get a ton of ghosting because of how much this is coming through, but not all the way through, kind of how deep it's getting into the paper. You couldn't use the back of the paper. On the medium, you ruin the page underneath. But it's a pocket notebook. I don't think it's too bad. The medium does have a bunch of feathering all the way through all of Shakespeare, all the way through all of, well, let's just say all of it has a tiny bit of feathering. Right a bit larger, but I wouldn't use a medium here because of what we saw on the back. No spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. The extra fine is a little bit lighter than the medium. It does have moments of tiny feathering, like the K in quick, little bit of tiny feathering. The B in brown, little bit of tiny feathering. On the majority though, this looks really good here for being such poorly made paper. No spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. 5 seconds to dry. Scrubby shows no color variation and we're not getting it. In the smear test, you could recover it if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Montblanc's William Shakespeare has a viscosity of 3.17, making this a surprisingly dry ink. If you're interested in how the viscosity and all of that's done, then down in the description there's a link to that video. Let's take a look at crowd favorite 20-pound copy paper. We get a lot of bleed that's going on, a lot of ghosting as a result of that bleed. Here's the thing with all of this though, none of it touched the page underneath, leaving this in a pretty good spot if you really needed to use it. Just can't use the back of the paper at all. That medium has a ton of feathering, a ton of spread. It went to about a broad or double broad. No halo, no sheen, no shade. No, don't use it with that kind of pen on this paper. The extra fine has tiny feathering the entire way through, but this feathering I don't see stopping someone from using it. It does spread to about a medium. No halo, sheen, no shade, 1 second to dry. The scrubby shows no color variation, and there is none. In a smear test, you could definitely recover it if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, and the realm of normal was 13 to 21 seconds. Montblanc's William Shakespeare has an average dry time of 17 seconds, making it not just normal, but average. The last writing sample is done on Leuchtturm 1917 paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. That 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 8 seconds to dry. The medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 11 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't expect it, we didn't get it. And the smear test, you have a very strong chance of recovering it if you smear while you're writing. Instead of finding inks that look like Montblanc's William Shakespeare, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I wanted to go with something that doesn't draw away from this, and that means black. I chose Monteverde's Black Ash. Now, if you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description are links to those playlists. So what do I think of Montblanc's William Shakespeare? The bottle this comes in is horrible. It's just so shallow. The ink is a dark red and a pretty pure red at that for what we get to see. It doesn't scream obnoxiously. For as dark as it is, that is what's keeping the color under control. So what nib and pen give the best writing experience with this ink? I really do like the solid dark tone given by a wet medium or wet fine. It's a very distinctive dark red at that point that I'm enjoying. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video we're going to take a look at a shimmering ink by Diatramentis. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video we're going to take a look at a shimmering ink by Diatramentis, their Magenta Red Silver.